The Special Fathers Network is thrilled to be sponsored by Rubin Law, a multi-generational law firm dedicated exclusively to serving families raising children with special needs. It's not one thing they do, it's the only thing they do. To find out more, go to rubinlaw.com, RUBIN law.com, or call 847-279-7999 and mention the Special Fathers Network for a free consultation.
Because we've really tried to promote kindness too, tried to have it be a safe place where anybody and everybody could come in and just learn how to do stuff without, feeling like, I'm going to get yelled at,
That's our guest this week on the Dad to Dad podcast, Rob Kenney. With over 5 million fans and counting, Rob has been hosting the phenomenally successful YouTube series, Dad, How Do I?
Okay, so today I'm going to show you how to fix a clogged sink. How's everybody doing today? Nice to see you again. So today I'm going to show you how to make coffee. So I'm going to show you how to fix a running toilet. Okay, so today I'm going to show you how to use a stud finder. If you came here looking for help finding a boyfriend, that would be a different stud finder. Dad joke, sorry. It's Dad, how do I? So you got to expect those occasionally. You got to give me that, okay?
We'll hear Rob's stories and how the pandemic brought him a huge internet following. In short, we'll hear how he did it. That's all on this Special Fathers Network Dad to Dad podcast. Here's your host, David Hirsch.
Hi, and thanks for listening to the Dad to Dad podcast, Fathers Mentoring Fathers of Children with Special Needs, presented by the Special Fathers Network.
The Special Fathers Network is a dad-to-dad mentoring program for fathers raising children with special needs. Through our personalized matching process, new fathers with special needs children connect with mentor fathers in a similar situation. It's a great way for dads to support dads. To find out more, go to 21stcenturydads.org.
And if you're a dad looking for help or would like to offer help, we'd be honored to have you join our closed Facebook group. Please go to facebook.com/groups and search Dad to Dad.
And now let's hear this conversation between Rob Kenney and David Hirsch.
I'm thrilled to be talking today with Rob Kenney of Seattle, Washington, who works in outside sales, is the father of two, and creator of the Dad, How Do I phenomena. Rob, thank you for taking the time to do a podcast interview for the Special Fathers Network.
Yes, of course. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
You and your wife have been married for 30 years and are the proud parents of two, Christine, 28, and Kyle, 25. Let's start with some background. Where did you grow up? Tell me something about your family.
Yeah, so I was actually born in New Orleans. I'm one of 8 children. I'm number 7. And the first 6 siblings, the older siblings, were all born near Wichita, Kansas. And my dad worked for Boeing. And his work started to dry up. And so he had a decision to make, and he ended up moving us to New Orleans for the space program back in 63. And then I was born in 64. And then we moved up here in 66, up to Seattle in 66. And then my younger sister was born after that.
Excellent. So I remember you telling me that one of the challenges when you were younger was that your parents split, which is something we both have in common. And I'm wondering how that transpired and what impact that had on you.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't live there. I don't dwell on it. I don't use it as an excuse or anything. Main reason I even bring it up is to try to give hope to people to, things are temporary. And as I've gotten older, I really realize things are temporary. I was temporarily young and now I'm old. It doesn't take long. So I was 14 when that happened. I determined as much as a 14-year-old could that I would never do that myself. And that was a big goal in my life to, raise good adults. And my wife, I married well. So my wife and I have done that. We're almost married 30 years. Actually, when this airs, it might be 30 years. Our anniversary is in January. We'll have been married 30 years.
Excellent. So you mentioned that your dad worked for Boeing, and sadly he passed away 5 or 6 years ago. And I'm wondering, how would you describe your relationship with your dad?
After the family split up, I had a lot of animosity towards him, and then we slowly kind of patched things up, but it was superficial, my relationship with him, up until probably about 10 years before he passed. It was basically superficial. We couldn't talk about anything that really was meaningful. And then, we reconciled before he passed. Thankfully, I was able to, he asked for forgiveness and I gave him, I'm a Christian, so I've been forgiven much. So it was fairly easy for me to forgive him. It seemed a little, and I've shared this in other interviews, that, it was a little anticlimactic. It wasn't this dramatic moment where, wow, it finally happened. And it was more like, okay, that's done. Now we can kind of move on. So that was how our relationship was.
Okay. Were there any important lessons that you learned from your dad, either directly or indirectly, that, resonate with you even today?
Yeah, my dad started well. He absolutely started well. There's photos of the older siblings. And then when we were younger, we would go camping, we would go fishing. We'd play football together on the weekends. So, he started really well. He just unfortunately got tripped up. And that's what I try to share on my channel is I try to, if you've gotten off track, let's get back on track, get back in the game. We need you, we need good dads to be, to hang in there. And again, things are temporary, it's a temporary situation. Understand, think long-term about your life and the decisions you make.
Okay. Did anyone else serve as a father figure when you were a younger guy?
Well, my brother Rick did. When our family split up, I went to live with him. And so he's 9 years older than me. At the time he was 23 and I was 14 and he was newly married. And so, at the time 23 seemed old. Now it seemed my son's 25 and I can't imagine him having a teenager living with him, So yeah, we're really close to this day. And I go to him a lot for wisdom.
Okay. Well, that's fabulous. I can only imagine if they're newlyweds or had been married for a short period of time that, they're thinking, oh, we're going to start our lives, the two of them, your brother and your sister-in-law, and then you move in with them and they're like, oh, wait a second, I don't know if I signed up for your little brother with us.
Yikes. I know. I'm right there with you. That's so they were in a trailer because their plan was to, we weren't well off. And so they were going to save money. They, I call it a mobile home, but it was a glorified trailer. It was an 8x35 trailer. My brother ended up building a shelf in the back of the trailer and put a bed on it. And that was my bedroom. So I had to walk through their bedroom to get to my bedroom, which wasn't really a bedroom, so it was, I feel bad for him to this day, that had to be hard. I mean, I had some tough times, but I feel bad for them, like you said, and my brother has since said that they had kind of talked about this being something that could happen. And Karen, thankfully, was gracious enough to say that, yeah, if that happens, then I'm on board. So I'm very grateful to her too. I'm close to her as well.
Well, thank you for sharing. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So from what I remember in a prior conversation, you went to Central College for a couple of years and you realized that maybe that wasn't your path. And I'm wondering what was going on when you were a younger guy and thinking about college, work, etc.
I'd always wanted to play football, to be honest with you. I grew up, we loved football and I played and I got, I was pretty good. Just didn't have a whole lot of direction. So I played in high school and then I kind of had to work. I was on my own. My senior year, I ended up moving out of my brother's place and moving in with my two older brothers that were fairly close to me because I wanted to graduate from my own high school. And my brother, Rick and Karen, they were moving to a different town. And so I wanted to stay there. But I just, I really didn't have a normal life. So it wasn't, and I just didn't know what the next step was. And so I was working, trying to save some money. And then I finally, when my mom passed away in 86, that's when I was like, I want to go, I got to do this. I got to make an attempt. And so I went to Central Washington University and I tried out for the football team and played for a couple of years. And then I ended up getting a job at Boeing. My dad had while I was in school, he was like, I got an opportunity to get you in here if you want. And so I was like, okay, I think I've tried and this isn't going where I thought it was going to go. Okay. Time to shift gears.
So your career started at Boeing from what you said. And I'm wondering, how did you transition from there to the type of work that you're doing now?
Yeah. So that's where I met my wife. So that's one of the things God had planned for me, is when I went to Boeing, then meet my wife there. And then I had, there was a person that I worked for there. Her husband was starting an audiovisual business, audiovisual rental business. And so I could see that since I didn't have the 4-year education, Boeing looks highly on education, which understandably so. But so I was frustrated with how long it was taking for the money to come. I ended up becoming a lead over 9 people. And so they were promoting me, but the money wasn't coming. And I'm like, I can't wait any longer. So I had this opportunity to go be part owner of an audiovisual company. And I started out well, and then that kind of fell apart. And then so I was, and my wife was still working at Boeing and got pregnant with my daughter. And then I split ways, and I was like, the stress was just too much. I had to just give it up. And that was in October of 91. Yeah. And so I was like, man, I don't know what I've done with my life. And that was when I cried out to God, actually. And like, if you exist, and you can get me out of the mess that I've made for myself, because it was tough. It was humbling to around the holidays, especially seeing my pregnant wife go off to work. And I'm like sitting there scrambling, trying to find work. I didn't have any work. And so, yeah. And then in January, things kind of started falling back into place. And I kind of made a bargain with God that, hey, if you can straighten this out for me, I'll do whatever I can to try to learn more about you. And because it was a skeptic, I was skeptical that anybody was out there that actually cared about me. And, and then things started falling into place, and I knew it wasn't a coincidence. So I was like, okay.
So how did that transition into going into outside sales like you're in now?
Yeah, that was part of everything falling into place. I used to, my in-between time outside of high school and before I went to college, I actually worked for an office supply company. I went back to them to just see if they had work for me. And they didn't really have a job for me, but they said, if you want to do outside sales, we can create a job for you. I'm like, I'm an introvert, I've gotten better with that, but it scared me. But I was like, I need to do this for my family. I got to do something. I need a job. I need a job that maybe has a career. And I'm so thankful because they were very good to me, and they helped me get my first home. The flexible schedule has been amazing. I'm so grateful for how that has turned out.
So have you been with the same company all 20 plus years?
Well, so I was with that company for 17, and then they were sold to the company that I work for now. So it was Olympic Office Supply, and then they were sold to a company called Complete Office. And then Complete Office was recently, 3 years ago, was sold to Office Depot. Office Depot has been phenomenal. They've run us autonomously so that we're able to make our own decisions. So it's really, they said that, 3 years ago, and I was like, yeah, right. I'm going to be wearing a red shirt, and, I don't know how this is going to go. And I was kind of too old for this, but they've kept their word. They've been awesome. It's been great to work for them.
Great to hear. And I think what I heard you say was that the type of job you have has allowed you to balance your life, right? It's not all about work. But you can be available to your family, right? Be there with your kids and involved with their activities and their growth and their development.
That's huge. Yeah, no, I've seen pretty much everything my kids ever did, and it still went by like that. I didn't want to miss anything, and I pretty much didn't. I was there, but it's amazing to me that it's come and gone.
Well, that's fabulous. And I think that's one of the things that I realized with my 35-year career in financial services is that, you have the autonomy to, make your own schedule. Not entirely, but you have some flexibility. And if you're smart about that and you have a family, hopefully you can spend more one-on-one time with your wife and with your kids and be engaged. Because you're right, it goes by in a blink. All of a sudden they're young adults and they're going to be getting married and having kids of their own. And, it's like, where did the time go, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. I look back on the pictures and I can't believe it. I've shared this story, I think on my channel. Yeah, I did. When my daughter graduated from high school, I was a blubbering mess. I had that day had the brilliant idea of coming up with a slideshow kind of showing her growing up and, and all this is going to be great. So then I was an emotional wreck by the time we got to her party, and then we played that. I couldn't even, I was crying. It was sad because, good, happy tears because, I felt like she's done well. It's just graduating from high school. It wasn't that that big a deal, but it was sad because it's kind of like, okay, that window of time we won't have back again,
Yeah, well, I think you mentioned that Christine's also married, right? So you've had a chance to walk her down the aisle.
Yeah.
And talk about being a blubbering mess. That's what I felt like. My daughter getting married, I'm like, wow, it goes so fast.
Yeah, that was tough. So she got married right out of college. She graduated in 3 years from college. She turned 21 in June and got married in August. It was tough, but great guy. My son-in-law, I've been to weddings since then, and, you hear a lot of promises and you hear a lot of, oh, this is what I'm going to do. But this man has done it. They've been married for 7 years now. And he's phenomenal. He's just a great young man.
Well, I guess he would be your favorite son-in-law.
He's my only son-in-law. Yeah, but he is a great guy. He treats my daughter well. They're best friends. He's a great guy. He's lived up to what he promised.
That's excellent. So let's switch gears a little bit. You know that this is a podcast with our primary target audience. Our dads raising kids with special needs. So I want to just talk about special needs briefly because while you have typical kids, you and your wife have been blessed with typical kids, your family has experienced some level of special needs. And from what I remember, one of your sisters taught special ed. You have a cousin who has Down syndrome. This is your mom's brother's son. And I think you also mentioned that you have a niece who has DUP 15q syndrome, which is your wife's sister's daughter, if I've got it straight. And I'm wondering what involvement you've had and what your sort of perspective is on the world of special needs for that matter.
Yeah, this is such a hard thing because my heart goes out to all those involved. It's my sister-in-law, she ended up quitting her job to stay home with her daughter. My sister-in-law she's very qualified. She was working, I think, for Stanford University Medical, but she's making that sacrifice because she felt like it needed to be done. And she's inspiring. She's pretty remarkable. They're down in California, which makes it a little bit tough. We've talked about that. If we wish you guys were closer so that we could pitch in, because my wife's one of 8 kids too. So we have a lot of family up here that could be helping. It's a little tough and might seem a little shallow, but we do try to encourage her and pray for them because it's a lot of work.
Absolutely. And just having family members that have a child or in some cases children with special needs, I think gives you an insight about the importance of acceptance and inclusion. And one of the things that I've witnessed, Rob, is that some of the best parenting that I've seen is in the special needs community. These moms, as well as dads, don't take things for granted. They're usually more humble, less arrogant, less selfish, and they can celebrate smaller victories, right? The smaller things, the more important things in life in many cases. They have their priorities in order, and they're advocating in a little bit more deliberate way or intentional way because of their kids' vulnerability. I think they're a great role model for the rest of the community. So thanks for sharing. So let's talk about what's transpired during COVID, because your experience during COVID has been quite a bit different than, I will just say, most people's experience. What's the backstory on this, Dad? How do I?
I just wanted to have a resource, that people could have. And I came up with the name Dad, How Do I? Because I pictured one of my kids in the other room saying, Dad, how do I? My daughter and I, even though she's 28, we still talk all the time. And so a few years ago, I came up with the idea of this channel and YouTube channel, because I go to YouTube. My goal was to try to come up with this channel that you could be a reference for people to be able to come back, when you need it. You might not need it, now, but you might need it sometime. And I wanted it to be a one-stop shop where you can learn how to tie a tie, how to change a tire, I just did how to dig a post hole. Hey kids, so I'm in my backyard and I wanted to show you how to use a post hole digger. If you've never done it before, if you're going to build a fence, you'll need this. And I don't need to build a fence, but I actually do need to dig, so I thought I'd just go ahead and show you
show you how to use one if you've never done it before. So
it started because we were quarantined. I ran out of excuses. My daughter's been bugging me to do it for a few years, and I just kind of ran out of excuses because I actually had the time, and I started with how to tie a tie because it wasn't much of a commitment, didn't take me that long, and I'll just see what happens, and ironically, I started my channel on April 1st. So April Fool's Day. And then my first upload was April 2nd. And yeah, it's been crazy what has happened from it. I'm happy to be a resource, but the flip side is I'm sad that there's such a need for it. The stories and the comments of my subscribers, it's a little overwhelming at times because there's so much hurt in the world.
Yeah, well, it is really a phenomena. Here you are doing things that are as simple as like what you and I might take for granted, right? How to tie a tie, how to change a tire. Not rocket science, right? We're not sending a man to a moon. We're not doing open-heart brain surgery, right? We're talking about some things that are like foundational, right? Just basic things. And you've really touched a chord with people. And what I'm sort of fascinated by, because I've watched a number of the videos, and one of the things that I can say very objectively is that one of your strengths is just your authenticity, right? You're just sort of a ordinary guy who's, been married, raised a couple kids, and you're sort of handy, right? That's my observation. You're sort of handy. You're talking about not really complex things. Like, it's not like, oh, I'm going to show you how to change the engine out of your car, right, and put a new engine in. I think that would be more complicated, and it's certainly longer than a 10-minute video, right? But, it's the simplicity of it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
You've really touched a chord with people, and the fact that you've done this as a dad, right, which is what appeals to me, being an advocate for the last 24 plus years, advocating for dads to be involved, right, which is how we've, crossed paths with one another. And if your original objective was just to be a resource that others might be able to use, you've not only accomplished that, but, you've gone well beyond. And I'm wondering, when did you realize that this was starting to take off? Like that it was more than just, the type of the response I was maybe anticipating.
Yeah. So early on, my daughter shared it. There's a group called Scrubbing In. I think it's a podcast called Scrubbing In, and they call themselves the Scrubbers. My daughter shared it in the group, and they're all about positivity, trying to, bring kindness and that type of stuff. And she shared it with them, and every one of them was like, the support. I immediately had 300 subscribers, and I'm like, 300? I thought I was going to have 30 or 40 subscribers. 300? I couldn't get my head around that. And I was like, wow, okay. And then my daughter said, Dad, I think this could really, I'm going to share it in a few more Facebook kindness groups. And because we've really tried to promote kindness too, tried to have it be a safe place where anybody and everybody could come in and just learn how to do stuff without, feeling like, I'm going to get yelled at, I just want you to feel it. Because and one thing I'm looking forward to with my channel is the stories down the road. I want to hear 10 years from now, some famous person that watched me and I inspired them to go try something that they didn't think they could do, and they did it, and look at me. Oh man, I'm excited for, again, long term, thinking long term. I'm excited to hear what this thing has inspired in other individuals, because I'm all about trying to empower people.
Well, you're very humble. You might have had 300 subscribers initially, which seemed like a lot, but at last count, it's like 2.8 million subscribers.
Yeah.
That's in like 6 months, right? The first 6 months of this. And, it's like, oh my gosh, right? So I'm sort of curious to know, what have you enjoyed most about putting these videos together?
I don't know. I'm thankful that I feel like the Lord has kind of given me a platform to share His love with people, because I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of bad publicity for Christians or for people of faith, and rightly so. Unfortunately, we've brought a lot of it on ourselves. There's a lot of religious people, but I also look at Jesus. during his day, he was most hard on the religious people of his day because their hearts were hardened and they were supposedly representing God. And he was hard on them because they were misrepresenting God. And so I think I'm thankful in a small way I can share just a taste of God's love for people, because God loves people. But unfortunately, that isn't communicated very well on a lot of levels. And so I love that. I love to be that. I feel like there's time when it first went viral, I was in my bed crying because I just felt like I was drinking from a water hose, or a fire hose. I was like, I can't take this in. I'm trying to process it all. But now that I've got my head around it, I'm thankful that, and I just want to be faithful and I want to represent him well.
So how many videos have you actually done so far?
I think it's about 40 now. I've lost track. So it's kind of all over the place. Thankfully I was able to do some dad chats, and I'm thankful that, and I talked to you about that a little bit, is there's so much more to being a dad than just fixing things. I wanted to be able to share my heart and try to give some guidance to some people. I did a dad chat on attitude, did a dad chat on integrity, just to try to walk alongside people, because I care about the next generation. If you don't have a role model, or you don't have somebody walking alongside you, that breaks my heart, because we need each other, I shared that. I had a video called saying that we need each other because the millennials don't like the boomers, and the boomers don't like the millennials. They kind of put them in make stereotypes about them. And when in reality, we need each other. I need my daughter. She helps me all the time, with social media, with all kinds of different things that I can't relate to. But she needs me, so we really need each other. It's sad that there's this gap where we're kind of fighting each other.
So I'm curious to know if you have a favorite episode.
I don't know. The tie obviously is kind of, because it brings back memories of when I first started this, which seems so long ago, but it's really not that long ago. That was good. But, the ones that have resonated big too were, I'm proud of you, when I said, I'm proud of you. But part of that breaks my heart because some people have never been told that somebody's proud of them.
One thing of encouragement I just want to leave you with is, I know when I was younger, I let critics keep me from doing things that I might have done. Otherwise, I didn't want to get out of my comfort zone. And so don't let that happen to you. Go ahead and put yourself out there. If there's something that you're a little scared of doing, I just want to encourage you to do it. I love you. I'm proud of you. God bless you.
So which of the episodes has been viewed the most times so far?
I think it's that one. I'm proud of you. I think that's the one that I think it's closing on 2 million views. My tie just broke 1 million. And so I think as far as being the most viewed for content that they're using, I think is how to tie a tie and how to shave.
Yeah, well, it's really remarkable. I think you had one that was called Thank You as well.
Yeah, the Thank You and I'm proud of you are the two big ones. And it's funny because those kind of came about because I was tapped out. My channel went viral, and I always been tried to be a man of my word. If I say something I'm going to do, I want to do it. And I put on my channel that every week I'm going to put up a how-to. And it's like, oh no, my life is turned upside down. I'm getting emails, people wanting to interview me and stuff. And I had to punt. I had to just get on and just pour my heart out. And I look back and it's pretty raw emotion, because I was a wreck. I'm like, I said, please protect me. From what? What was I need protection from? But I think at the time I was like, man, my life, I had a pretty good life before, my wife and I planned, well, I'm 56. I was going to just retire like a normal American, So I wasn't ready for this. And so I was trying to process everything that just happened. And it was a little scary.
So were there any other surprises that have come out other than the ones you've already mentioned?
Well, the opportunities that I have, I've shared a little bit with you off the record, and I can't really speak to it too much. But the opportunities that I have are remarkable. every week I get a couple more opportunities for sponsorships, and I'm trying to navigate that well so that I don't sell out. I don't want to be an infomercial. I don't want to be somebody that, hey, buy this today. If it's something that I would recommend to my own kids, then I will recommend it to my subscribers. And that's how I want to keep that relationship, because if I started being a walking billboard selling something that I couldn't, and I've been in sales for almost 30 years. I've sold that way too. I've created a trust with my customers where they know I'm not going to bring them something that I don't believe in, because I wear it on my sleeve, I wear my heart on my sleeve. If they could read it from me if I was trying to sell them something.
So I'm hoping somebody picks this idea up, and maybe there's a book in the future. I know you can't talk about these things, but it seems very worthy of a book. And I'm wondering if there's been any other opportunities that you can talk about.
Yeah. There's a possibility, there's a possibility of maybe turning it into a TV series of some sort. So I don't know what that would look like or not. And, early on I had several people reach out to me about that. And I am working with one in particular now to see if it makes sense to do that. And
was there some talk, I vaguely remember in a prior conversation, you mentioning something about doing something for a not-for-profit or in the name of a not-for-profit. And I'm wondering if you've got any updated thoughts on that.
Yeah, I hope to. That's my goal, is to give back. I didn't do this to get rich. I didn't do it I had never ever had this plan of, okay, I'm going to do this so I can get wealthy, and switch careers. That was never the intent. And I think that's part of the reason it's kind of, because I don't come across as salesy, because I wasn't trying to sell anybody anything. I was just trying to help people. So there's, we'll see. I do have an opportunity to work with a soldier's child. I'm going to be flying out to Tennessee next September to put on a camp where I'm going to help work with these children that don't have, the fallen soldiers' children. So I'm thankful for that. And, I'm always open to try to figure out and I did a fundraiser for Starlight Foundation, Children's Foundation for kids with cancer. So if I can use this platform for good, I will.
We've talked about mission statements, and I'm wondering, do you have a mission statement now as a result of this?
I made a mission statement for my channel. So I actually have it on the wall here behind me. I picked 6 things. And again, it's something that it's not that these are set in stone and I can't change them, but this is what at the time I felt like I wanted to stay on track. And I put, number 1, I put share God's love, like I shared with you before. I want to be able to, in a small way, point people to the Lord. And then I put number 2, provide a safe place for anyone to learn. I don't care who you are. I want you to come on in and feel safe that even though I'm a Christian, hopefully I'm not scaring anybody away by, you need to change. I just want to try to be there for anybody and everybody that needs some, a helping hand. I want to promote kindness, so if people come on my channel and they're trolling other people, I remove them from my channel. There's an opportunity to remove from channel. You're gone. If you're not going to be kind to each other, we don't need you. We don't need somebody coming in stirring stuff up. I put encourage other dads. I want to try to, if a dad has gotten off track, try to encourage them to get back on track, because we need good dads. The world needs good dads, as well as moms, of course. But dads, a lot of times, are the ones that are running after the shiny objects and left these these kids behind. And then I put maintain trust with my kids. Like I just shared with you, I don't want to be a walking billboard. I want to be able to not betray that trust. I'm here for you, trying to walk alongside you and help you. And I'm not going to sell you something that I don't personally use or don't believe in. And then the last thing was to give back. Like I just shared with you, I want to be able to, I'm trying to figure it out, ways that we can give back. There's so many good causes I'd rather give my money to.
Yeah, well, that's fabulous. Thank you for sharing your mission statement. I'd like to include that in the show notes, just so if somebody's looking and they might be driving or exercising or something, that they'll be able to come back and, have that. Because I think that I usually ask about advice, right? And I'm not going to ask about advice because that mission statement is something that we can all embrace. To share God's love, to provide a safe environment, to promote kindness, encourage other dads, maintain trust, and to give back.
Yeah.
Who's going to argue with those, right?
Yeah.
But you'd like to think that all of us would be able to embrace that. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if there's anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up.
No, I think we've covered a lot. A big thing for me, and this is interesting because I saw this about Mr. Rogers. One of the things I read about him was he was big on reconciliation. And I really like that because that's what I've tried to promote too is, reconciling with, if you need to forgive somebody, forgive them so you can get on with your life, because otherwise you're really hurting yourself. You're holding yourself back. And I think I've said that with my own kids too. It's easy to, as you're going through life, to get mad about something and I'm digging my feet in here and I'm not, hey, let's talk about it. We need to reconcile because life is going to go by. Do we really want this rift to be there? We need to reconcile and get on, and we're a team, and I'm doing the best I can. And I guess leave with that. I mean, like I said, we've covered a lot, but I think that's a pretty powerful message because I think it's so easy to, let years go by and you're letting stuff pass when, you're missing out on memories that you could be making. Let's just be honest with each other and admit we don't know everything and then we can both move on.
That's fabulous. So if somebody wants to learn more about Dad, How Do I, or to contact you, how would you suggest they go about doing that?
Yeah, I have an Instagram and I have, my YouTube channel's Dad, How Do I? So if you just put in YouTube, I think / Dad, How Do I? And then I'm at Dad, How Do I on Instagram. We've talked about Twitter. I don't know. My daughter, I don't want to put more on her and she's the one helping me. We're on Facebook too, but she's running all that for me.
Excellent. Rob, thank you for taking the time and many insights. As a reminder, Rob is just one of the dads who's part of the Special Fathers Network, a mentoring program for fathers raising a child with special needs. If you'd like to be a mentor father or are seeking advice from a mentor father with a similar situation to your own, please go to 21stcenturydads.org. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the latest episode of the Special Fathers Network Dad to Dad podcast. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. As you probably know, the 21st Century Dads Foundation is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization, which means we need your help to keep our content free to all concerned. Please consider making a tax-deductible contribution. I would really appreciate your support. Rob, thanks again.
You bet. Thanks for having me on.
And thank you for listening to the Dad to Dad podcast, presented by the Special Fathers Network. The Special Fathers Network is a dad-to-dad mentoring program for fathers raising children with special needs. Through our personalized matching process, new fathers with special needs children connect with mentor fathers in a similar situation. It's a great way for fathers to support fathers. Go to 21stcenturydads.org. That's 21stcenturydads.org.
And if you're a dad looking for help or would like to offer help, we would be honored to have you join our closed Facebook group. Please go to facebook.com/groups and search Dad to Dad. Also, please be sure to register for the Special Fathers Network bi-weekly Zoom calls held on the first and third Tuesdays of every month. Lastly, we're always looking to share interesting stories. If you'd like to share your story or know of a compelling story, please send an email to david@21stcenturydads.org.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen. The Dad to Dad podcast was produced by Couch Audio for the Special Fathers Network. Thanks again to Reuben Law for supporting the Dad to Dad podcast. Call Reuben Law at 847-279-7999 and mention the Special Fathers Network for a free consultation. 847-279-7999.